One of the things that makes Keynote even more amazing than it has always been, and if you're not using it and own a Mac, you definitely should ditch PowerPoint and start using Keynote for your Mac. Keynote is even more amazing now because they've added the ability to put 3D models into a keynote presentation. Now, maybe that doesn't sound super cool, but let me show you exactly what this is going to do, all the amazing things that it's going to do to be able to have animations, movement, unique kinds of ways to experience something more than just kind of static slides that PowerPoint or even Keynote before this could do. So let's jump into it and let me show you what's new in Keynote 13.2 that makes it amazing. Now, the first thing you might be asking is, where do I get these 3D models? I don't have 3D models. Well, you do have the ability to make 3D models if you've got an iPhone in your hand. It's got LiDAR scanners and all sorts of crazy stuff. Now, there's some apps out there that can help make 3D models, things like Luma, things like Polycam. Find those, learn how to use them if you want to make your own 3D models. But you don't have to make your own 3D models to be able to use them in Keynote. Let me show you a few websites that are able to get you some free or low cost models. Here's a few websites that I pulled up that have some really nice 3D models that you can use. First is the Smithsonian. They've got a whole web page under 3d.si.edu that you can just pull 3D models from the Smithsonian Institution's collection. Now on the web page, they have some featured models, but one of the things that I like the best is they've got some categorization by the various museums. So if you know anything about the Smithsonian, there's a number of different museums that fit within that. So the Air and Space Museum, the African American Museum, the American Indian Museum. So if you have some specific domain in mind, you can go straight to that particular the set of models that you want. So here I want to look for open access media. And so at the Air and Space Museum, let's click on the Bell X1. Here's the object. You can see it kind of loading in their system. And when it is loaded, it'll show you the controls for being able to move it around, and you can see it sort of responds to light sources and all sorts of cool stuff like that. Let's go ahead, and the important thing we want to do here is download it. Now, you'll have to look carefully because the thing that Keynote is able to use is the file format USDZ. If you look down this list, there's lots of different ones, OBJs, GLTFs, GLBs, those kinds of things. But look down here for the USDZ model. We'll click that and it will download. So if we wanted to, we could take a look at what that looks like in Keynote. I'll open a new document. All I have to do is drag that file straight into the Keynote document. And it'll take just a second here again. Once it's loaded up, you'll see this little icon here that gives you the controls to be able to kind of move it around to whatever angle that you want. Another good free website is NASA's website. They've got loads of 3D models on here. So they used to have them all sort of collected onto a page. Now you need to go through and search for them. If you just go into nasa.gov and do a search for 3D, it should come up with this nice list of all sorts of 3D models that you can use. So let's go ahead and maybe get the Mars model. And you can see they've got a USDZ file, so that will work perfectly for us. We'll just download that. Now, there's also a couple of pay sites that are pretty good for being able to find 3D models. Now, don't get scared by the word pay site. Many of the models that they have on there, they're trying to get the people who have created them some money for them. But there are lots and lots of free models out there as well for those of you who are educators or graduate students or poor or cheap or whatever it happens to be. All right, so one is TurboSquid. The last one I want to show you today, before we get into the really actually cool parts of how to make this work within Keynote, is a website called Sketchfab. You'll be able to find probably many, many more free 3D models in this one. So this is the one I recommend that you kind of spend your most time on it. When you're in Sketchfab, once you've got your account all set up and all those kinds of things, just go ahead and start searching for whatever the models are that you want to search for. And I would really love to see a Star Trek set of models. For most, you want to do licenses, and you want to make sure that you don't have standard or editorial on there. Those are usually the ones that you have to pay for. You do want to set that it's downloadable. Some of these are just for display, and of course that's great, but you can't use it in your own Keynote presentation if you can't download it. So I'll kind of give a look through these. Wow, that looks pretty darn good. Look at that. Wow, wow, wow. And check out the light effects that are going on there. That is beautiful. So what we would do then is download the 3D model. It will give you a list of different file types, and of course we want the USDZ. So let me give you a few use cases for how you can take these 3D models and do things that you couldn't do before in your regular just sort of static slides. So here's one. Say you're teaching art history, or you've got a piece of art that is important to the class that you're teaching. You can do more than just have this individual picture of the statue on there. You can, for instance, like if you pulled this from, say, Smithsonian Institution or something, if you go ahead and play this. So as you're playing this, of course, you can turn it around whatever way you want to. But then once you've gone and switched it over to the back, you can see all sides of this particular statue. And in conjunction with the other tools that come with Keynote for animation and things, which are already really powerful, you can, for instance, zoom in on a particular aspect of it or a detail. And of course, you can go and do even more than what I was just showing you with just the sort of turnaround. If you add other kinds of animation effects that Keynote can do just sort of normally to these new sort of 3D model effects, you can get some really fun things going on. So for instance, here's a piece that I put together that combines, a plane coming in, getting bigger and smaller, and having some sound in there and all those kinds of things. So here's some possibilities. Okay, let's try putting it all together and come up with a new project, just to give you some other ideas about how things could go. Of course, creativity is almost unlimited with this particular sort of use of USDZ files and things. When you're talking about combining it with Keynote's animations, I mean, you're able to do so many different things. Well, let's look at how we might go ahead and do like a Starship Enterprise kind of, title scene in there. We're going to start with a basic black custom theme, and then I want to get a blank page. Now, of course, if you want to do starships and things, you have to have some other elements to go with it. So what I'm going to do is look at some places to get some other elements. Of course, what we're going to need is some space background and loads of different ones here that we could get. That looks really good. So I'm going to download that. I'm using Unsplash here, unsplash.com. Lots of great free images that you can get. All right, so I've downloaded that one. I also have a subscription to Envato, Envato Elements. It costs, I think, about $100 a year, which is a little expensive, but it's got so many great videos and sound effects and music and all sorts of things that I can use to put into my presentations and films and things like that. Once I'm signed in, I can start to just look for things. I want some sound effects first of all, and I am going to look for Starship. And there's lots of different kinds of Starship sounds. You can preview these by clicking on the play buttons here. What I really want is kind of a drone of sound that goes behind starships. If you've ever actually paid attention to the sound in, say, Star Trek, there's kind of this rumble of the engines that's just sort of always in the background. Okay, so here I found one that I like. Starship Rumble in the Deep.
Audio Jungle.
You might be able to hear that. It's that kind of sound that you would hear in the background, so I'm just going to download that. Now there's other, of course, places where there are free sound effects and things. Pixabay, Pixabay.com has a lot of different free images like photos, illustrations. Also has some sound effects if you wanted. I've got all the elements that I need. You'll remember that before we downloaded some Mars picture and a starship and things like that. Now remember, you'll want to duplicate these slides. So I'm going to drag in this background picture. That's very nice. Scale it up. Remember, you've got to copy it on both slides. Then I'm going to get that Mars that I got before, drag it in, and I think I want it to be nice and big, so I'm going to stretch that out even so that it kind of goes off the frame. So what I'll do is I'll just kind of like position it where I want it to start. And again, I've got to copy and paste on both slides. So it'll start there on, this is the second slide that I'm working with here. So I've got that one selected, but I want to then rotate it, and I'm going to rotate it kind of at an angle like this, so that it will sort of spin and look a little like it's orbiting kind of in a unique direction. So we're going to make sure that we put on that magic move transition. It reminds us to copy and paste on both sides, so you can kind of see when it gets to that second slide what it's going to look like. It's going to spin a little like that. Of course, that's a little faster than I want it to go, so I'm going to increase the duration here. I'm going to have it go for maybe 20 seconds. And remember, again, this ease and out acceleration, so that's going to sort of ramp up the speed at which it goes. I don't want that. I want it to have a nice sort of even spin, just like a planet might, so I'm going to turn that acceleration off. I'm going to turn off the transition on click. I'm going to change it to automatically. I don't want any delay. Okay, so then on the second slide, just make sure that that transition there's no transition for the second one. I'll go ahead and get my starship and drag it in. That's what it's going to look like. So I want to sort of make sure to spin this around. We'll sort of start here on the first slide. I'll have a little bit of the bottom of it that I can see there. Remember to copy and paste to the second slide, but I also want the starship to have moved. So I'm going to make it a little bit smaller, not a whole lot, because it's, they sort of slowly fly. And I'm going to kind of give it a turn here. So that you'll be able to see when we preview this. It's going to kind of slowly fly. And for me, this kind of stays off screen a little too much. So I'm going to shorten this duration because I only want maybe 10 seconds of a transition here. So it's maybe going to barely start off screen. And then I'm going to turn it a little bit more and maybe shrink it a little bit more so that it looks like it's moved a good bit more. So we'll preview that. All right, that looks pretty good. All right, now of course, as I said, we want some sound in there. So we're going to get that nice rumbly engine sound. Now we had some audio in there before. I'm going to just delete that so that we make sure we've got this one in here. Now, remember, we're going to make sure that we format this audio. We want to make sure that it doesn't have to wait until we click on it to start the audio. We also want it to play across the slides, because remember, once it transitions to the second slide so that the starship can move and turn, that it would, if we didn't set it for that, it wouldn't actually have the same audio keep going. All right, so let's preview this all together. So a couple of problems I can see already is that the music is too long, and there's also kind of a shadow of a spaceship in there. So I'm going to try to find out. Oh, let's see, we've got two spaceships there, so we want to get rid of that one. We also want to make sure that, let's go ahead and take off this second audio, go back to the first one, and make sure that this clip is only playing for 10 seconds. That's how long the transition is that we set before. So now when we play it, I got the planet going there. Now if you didn't want it to go quite so fast, just when you're making the model, don't turn it quite as much when you're setting the Mars in there. But You can certainly play around with that. And of course, if you wanted to, you could add a theme song playing in the background and all sorts of things that you can do to kind of make these things come alive, right? You've got things spinning around on their axis. You've got a starship that can kind of slowly turn around and move and shrink all at the same time. And as you can see, I did that in about 5 minutes to have this really nice sort of bumper, if you will. So if you're looking for some pretty powerful animations that you can do so simply in just Keynote, this might be a great idea for you.